Thank you, John. And I also welcome Dr. Laura Pulido, Dr. Andrey Kobayashi, Dr. William Denevan, Dr. Carolyn Finney, Mr. William Herbert, and all of you who are participating in this American Geographical Society Fall Symposium. We are pleased that you are joining us for the presentation of 5 American Geographical Society medals. Although we can't be together on a stage to recognize these incredible individuals, we are together virtually and from across the globe through our technology stage. We are so proud to be able to recognize these amazing scholars whose work has done much to advance a more equitable future. The medals we are awarding today include the Cullum Geographical Medal for exemplary geographical research and scholarship to be presented to Dr. Laura Pulido, the Charles P. Daly Medal to Dr. Andrey Kobayashi for distinguished geographical services, the Alexander and Ilse Melamid Medal for outstanding work on the dynamic relationship between human culture and natural resources will be presented to Dr. Carolyn Finney, the David Livingstone Centenary Medal for the scientific achievement in the field of geography of the Southern Hemisphere to Dr. William Denevan. And we will award for the first time the John Gould Medal to Dr. William Herbert. This newest medal recognizes scholarship that advances ethical issues in the application of geography and geospatial tools. The Society awarded its first medal in 1896. Since then, 10 medals have been created and nearly 200 people have received this recognition. Harkening back to another era, the medals were created to recognize excellence and were awarded to individuals who expanded geographic knowledge through research and exploration, pioneered new geographic technology, and used geographical thinking to influence policy. Many medalists are from the United States, but nearly half are from other countries such as Brazil, China, the United Kingdom, France, Mongolia, Germany, and Canada. Through the awarding of medals, AGS has recognized astronauts, explorers, cartographers, inventors, researchers, world leaders, and of course, geographers. On a personal note, I have had the opportunity to learn from and work with each of today's award recipients. As you will learn from the introductions, we are honoring an impressive group. Now I would like to invite Dr. Deborah Popper, Chair of the Honors Committee and a recipient of the Voris Medal, to read the citations. Deborah.
Welcome to the 2021 medal ceremony. I'm Deborah Popper, Chair of the AGS Honors and Awards Committee, and it's my pleasure to host this event. Ever since its inception in 1851, the American Geographical Society has been dedicated to expanding geographical knowledge and its wise application. In 1896, it added a new tool to its repertoire, thanks to the endowment of the Cullum Geographical Medal for Geographical Excellence. Since then, we've been able to add 9 more medals, each targeting a different slice of geography. There are more regional medals like Davidson for oceans and Pacific Rim knowledge, and more technical ones like the O.M. Millard cartographic one, for example. The medals celebrate our awardees' excellent work, and we hope spur on more. These awardees are geography's role models. We have honored such notables as Louise Boyd, Jean Gottman, Harold Rose, Carl Sauer, Yifu Tuan, and Gilbert White, among others. This year, we are awarding 5 medals. These range from our oldest medal, the Cullum, to our newest, the Gould. I have the honor of reading the citations for each of the medalists. They are a terrific group, and it's my pleasure to act in AGS's behalf. We turn first to our newest, the John E. Gould Medal, going to William Herbert. This is the inaugural year for the John E. Gould Medal, established by the generous Ilse Melamid, whose astute understanding of significant global issues has led her to create a second timely medal. This new medal honors the long time American Geographical Society Council President and Chair, Gould, a lawyer, first encountered AGS in the 1970s when assigned to assist the society in a challenge from the city of New York when, as part of moving from its building, the society kept its library collection intact by placing it under the auspices of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Gould's defense proved successful and just the first of his contributions to the society. In his efforts on behalf of AGS, Gould has been unfailing in his attention to the legal and ethical issues of any business before the organization. His sensitivity to detail, nuance, and impact has been impressive. All who have worked with him know that if John Gould thinks something is all right, it is. His service over the years has been characterized by his impeccable legal and ethical care. So the medal is to recognize those whose work, whether academic or applied, represents an exemplary effort to address the ethical implications of geographical and geospatial technologies and decisions. William Herbert is the Gould Medal's first recipient. Like Gould, Herbert is both a lawyer and a New Yorker. He is honored for his work on the implications of technology to privacy and freedom of movement. As a labor lawyer, Herbert has been particularly concerned with the ways in which technology increasingly shapes the workplace and affects those within it. He has been writing for decades about the issue, flagging how rapidly new technologies have been hailed and promoted, while interest in their impacts on expectations of privacy get little attention. As he wrote back in 2008, quote, very few employers, unions, and employees spend time considering what is right and what is wrong when it comes to email and internet use in the workplace. The same is true for explicitly geospatial technologies. Yet those monitoring such things reap tremendous insight into and potential control of the personal lives, occupations, and locations of those monitored. Herbert's interests are not solely in the workplace. His 2005 article on geoslavery, a term coined by AGS's Jerry Dobson and colleague Peter Fisher, was a tour de force on the potential of a whole range of tracking technologies, the legal basis for a right to freedom of movement, and how those two things should interact. He has called then and now for full discussion of how to balance liberty and security, and the governments and workplaces for government and workplaces to develop clear and fair regulations, expectations, and operations. Without due consideration, the changing structure of work and workplace has the power to undermine our very democracy. Herbert's career has taken him from labor and employment law for over 2 decades, deputy chair and counsel to the New York State Public Employment Relations Board, to his current post at Hunter College, City University of New York, as distinguished lecturer and executive director of National Center for the Study of Collective Bargaining in Higher Education and the Professions. We are grateful for his critical considerations of geographical and geospatial technologies. Therefore, for these reasons and more, on behalf of its grateful members and worldwide scholars, and all who recognize the importance of excellence in geographical research and exploration, the American Geographical Society honors William Herbert by presenting him with the John E. Gould Medal on this, the 18th day of November in the year 2021 in New York City. Congratulations.
Thank you, Professor Popper, and the other members of the American Geographical Society's Honors Committee for selecting me to be the first recipient of the John E. Gould Medal. It is a great honor to be recognized for my research and advocacy concerning the impact of geospatial and other electronic data on the power dynamics at work and in society generally. My research has touched on the intersection of labor, law, geography, and technology. In accepting the medal, it's important to acknowledge the many other scholars and activists around the world who are working to advance ethical and legal limitations with respect to the use of geospatial data. Such scholarship and activism are important and necessary to work toward a more equitable future, the theme of Geography 2050. It is also important for me to acknowledge those who have been instrumental in enabling my interdisciplinary work. First, I need to thank Jerome Dobson. A little less than 2 decades ago, I was a labor union attorney who had just begun researching the workplace implications of GPS technologies. After coming across a reference to Jerry's seminal work, which Deborah mentioned, the title of it was Geoslavery, and with much trepidation of contacting a geography professor, I emailed Jerry requesting a copy of the article. To my surprise and delight, he responded quickly to this stranger from the world of labor law with a kind note and the article attached. A year or two later, Jerry encouraged my participation in a special symposium that Deborah helped organize at the 2006 AAS conference in St. Louis. That panel was titled Orwell's Wolf is Back, tracking kids, dogs, old people, and everybody in between. The symposium provided me with an opportunity to speak on a panel with and learn from 4 distinguished geographers. More recently, Jerry and I co-authored a book chapter on urban informatics and published an op-ed last year critical of the confused government messaging regarding the pandemic. For the past year, I've also been a member of the AAG Organizing Committee on Geoethics, which presented a series of webinars, including one focused on labor rights and geospatial data, which I co-moderated with UC Santa Barbara sociologist Rich Applebaum. Among the many lessons I have learned from working with Jerry and those on the AAG Organizing Committee is that geographers are remarkably welcoming and supportive, and if I may say so, very cool. In accepting the John E. Gould Medal, I also need to acknowledge 3 professional colleagues who provided key support for my research and scholarship. My participation in the AAS conference and the publication of my first work on the legal implications of geospatial technologies would not have been possible without the consent of my union's general counsel, Nancy Hoffman. Later, after taking a position with the New York Labor Relations Agency, it was my good fortune to be mentored by Chairperson Jerome Lefkowitz, who encouraged my continued research into geospatial and other technology issues in the workplace. In addition, I must thank Hunter College President Jennifer J. Rabb, who in 2013 invited me to join its faculty. For the past 8 years, Hunter College has provided me with a rich intellectual home and has allowed me to expand my fields of research. Besides my professional colleagues, another key source of support has been my family. My wife, Judith A. Lee, has demonstrated heroic patience, wisdom, and fortitude over 4 decades of marriage. In addition, our daughters, Beth and Lisa, have patiently endured my many intellectual enthusiasms, including taking time out of a family vacation in Namibia to learn about the use of GPS and RFID to track elephants and cheetahs. In closing, I want to underscore the many challenges, though, that we face in our collective effort to create a more equitable future. First, it's critically important that we unite to support policies and funding necessary to respond to the climate crisis. We also need to work together to stop the rise of anti-intellectualism and to increase funding for higher education. In addition, we must redouble our efforts at ending systemic racism. We cannot accomplish a more equitable future without eliminating the current levels of income and wealth inequalities. One of the most effective means in reaching that goal is through the expansion of unionization in this country, which will require federal labor law reform. Unionization is particularly important for platform and gig workers who are now subject to perpetual and oppressive tracking. And lastly, there's a dire need for legislative and regulatory action on federal and state levels to mandate ethical and balanced use of geospatial data at work and beyond. Self-regulation is not a solution, particularly when substantial profits are being made through the technologies. I'd like to thank again the American Geographical Society for this great honor, and I hope you have a great conference.
The Alexander and Ilse Melamid Medal is given for exceptional work that addresses the dynamic relationship between human culture and natural resources. This year's award winner, Carolyn Finney, takes on that dynamic and in her own exceedingly original way, pushes it in new directions that are as important as they have been under-examined. Finney sees herself as a storyteller as much as a geographer who explores our creation, places and spaces in ways that reveal issues of identity, difference, creativity, and resilience. As a cultural and environmental geographer, she's especially concerned with relationships to nature, how and for whom it gets defined, the terms of the narratives around it. Her book, Black Faces, White Spaces, is a deep exploration of African-American experience of environment, the outdoors, forest, and park. Hers is the humanist's approach to people and resources, fully open to difference. She has a sense of obligation as an African-American geographer to engage race, to enlarge our ontologies of nature, to keep from falling into traps that limit or prescribe individuals and groups' understandings and expressions. She asks that we think and talk about environments in ways that sees the different perspectives and addresses what shapes responses, thus helping us understand, for example, how terms like wilderness connote one thing to some and the opposite to others, or how forests can be restorative or threatening, depending upon one's or one's group's past experience that influence expectations and engagement. Currently a geographer at Middlebury College, Finney came to academia after a career as an actor, followed by years of travel. She has been a Fulbright and Canada National Park Scholar. On top of a professor's teaching schedule, she has a calendar jam-packed with speaking events that range from the strictly academic to appearances before conservation, trails, garden, and wildlife groups. She brings a performer's skill to her presentations. She is strikingly engaging, mesmerizing her listeners, while also educating and provoking them to thinking in new ways. She communicates geography through a range of media. Lectures, art, performance pieces are all within her repertoire. Whether speaking or writing, her work has a striking visual quality it combines with its literary resonance. It manages to be personal, conversational, inviting, and convincingly makes clear how central that dynamic relationship between human culture and natural resources, the core of the Melamid method, is. Therefore, for these reasons and more, on behalf of its grateful members, worldwide scholars, and all who recognize the importance of excellence in geographical research and exploration, the American Geographical Society honors Professor Carolyn Finney by presenting her with the Alexander and Ilse Melamid Medal on this, the 18th day of November in the year 2021 in New York City. Congratulations, Carolyn.
Thank you, Dr. Deborah Popper. And what a day it is. November 18th, 3 days after my birthday. So I'm really excited. This is a fantastic honor. It's a fantastic birthday present to get. And listening to, it's so interesting to always listen to somebody as they describe how you do your work and who you are. And I'm always so moved by the interpretation, because you set it up here for me to continue to try to fill that in certain ways. I love being a geographer. I have to say that, I like being a geographer on my own terms, but I love what geography offers us, right? An opportunity to think about ourselves in relationship, not only to non-human nature, but also in relationship to each other. How do we do that better? How do we do that differently? How do we do that with thoughtfulness, intentionality, and how do we do that with love? And so for me, it's all about the creativity we bring, our uniqueness that we bring, the righteousness that we bring. And this is a really interesting moment to be a human being, right? There's a lot of things going down. So I am really honored to be part of this conversation with a lot of other thoughtful and intentional people. So I just want to say thanks again for honoring me, giving me that affirmation and reminding me of what I am responsible to beyond myself. So thank you.
Our next medal goes to William Denevan. It's the David Livingstone Centenary Medal. The David Livingstone Centenary Medal was created in 1913 to reward scientific achievement in the field of geography of the Southern Hemisphere. And if anyone deserves such recognition, it is William Denevan, this year's recipient. His work has made him an iconic figure, both to specialists and to non-specialists interested in Latin America. His lifetime of field-based research focused on the vital dynamic between human activity and the environment, has uncovered findings of profound and as profound and as present, as meaningful and useful today as when he introduced them. Denevan's work is marked by his geographical training at the University of California, Berkeley. A student of Carl Sauer and James Parson, also a Livingstone medalist, by the way, in 1985, Denevan immediately grasped the importance of field work as the entree into geographical understanding. His early wanderings on foot, boat, bus, and in small planes through Latin America gave him broad exposure and stimulated significant questions, ones that might not have occurred to a less inquiring mind. His careful on-the-ground work helped him answer them. He worked in both highlands and lowlands, documenting how native people have crafted their landscapes. His findings of the remains of adaptations, highland terracing and lowland raised fields, changed our understanding of the complexity and range of the Americas' early societies. His 1992 essay, The Pristine Myth, The Landscape of the Americas in 1492, in the Annals of the AAG, special 1492 issue, is a classic. It again radically reshaped our conceptions of human history. The article overturned assumptions about Western Hemisphere populations, their numbers, technological sophistication, and relationship to the natural world. Subsequent work on the topic has started with Denevan's expansive findings of the Americas, with a population greater or equal to that of Europe in 1492, that then suffered a catastrophic collapse of up to 90%. Now, the Carl O. Sauer Professor Emeritus, Denevan spent his career at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He has merited funding and recognition from Fulbright Ford and Guggenheim, NSF, National Geographic Societies, National Endowment for the Humanities, among others. He was awarded the Arch C. Gerlach Prize from the Pan American Institute of Geography and History, an honorary degree from the University of Bolivia, and is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. His publications start early with and continue growing and building. They range from the most specialized to interdisciplinary to broadly accessible. He served for many years on the editorial board of the American Geographical Review. His legacy is alive in the exceptional students he trained and nurtured, who followed him methodologically by working empirically and in the field, all the while making sure to make the time to ask the right questions. Therefore, for these reasons and more, on behalf of its grateful members, worldwide scholars, and all who recognize the importance of excellence in geographical research and exploration, the American Geographical Society honors Professor William Denevan by presenting him with the David Livingstone Centenary Medal on this, the 18th day of November in the year 2021 in New York City. Unfortunately, Professor Denevan is unable to share the screen with us, but I want to share some of his gracious acceptance notes. He wrote, "Yes, I accept. What a big surprise. I'm quite pleased and honored. My appreciation to the AGS. I've been a member for over 60 years. I see by the recipient list that I am joining several other recipients who have done research and exploration in Amazonia: Theodore Roosevelt, Candido Rondon, Alexander Hamilton Rice, Bertha Becker, and Susanna Hecht, a good friend. And Jim Parsons was my PhD advisor. As a child, I read about African explorers, including David Livingstone. I thought then, explorer would be a good job. It has been." Denevan is truly remarkable. As chair of the American Geographical Society's Honors and Awards Committee, I'm pleased to announce that Andrey Kobayashi is the 2021 recipient of the Charles P. Daly Medal. As AGS president, Daly created the medal to recognize, and I quote, "valuable or distinguished geographical services or labors." Daly himself exemplified such efforts. A lawyer and judge, he began his career in the New York State Assembly and served as AGS president for 35 years. Kobayashi, too, is a major force in and beyond geography, working within the academy and in Canadian public life. Born, raised, and educated in Vancouver, British Columbia, her early career was influenced by the work she did for Japanese Americans' reparations. As a researcher for the National Association of Japanese Canadians, she was an important part of an effort that resulted in 1988 in the Canadian government's apology, redress, and compensation for its treatment of its citizens of Japanese descent. That work has been central to Kobayashi. She powerfully addresses the terms for national identity and citizenship. Her thinking is broad, including those already in the country and new immigrants to it, and extends out to explore the nature of human difference, what is meaningful about it, whether for race, class, gender, ability, or national identity. While the Japanese-Canadian experience has been an ongoing part of her work, she has attended to numerous other communities and their control of place and home. With her most recent project, The Right to Remain, focused on Vancouver's downtown east side. There, as elsewhere, she assiduously follows her preferred methodology, participatory effort. A professor of geography at Queen's University, Kobayashi has led geographical institutions both in her native Canada and the US, been president of the Canadian Association of Geographers and the American Association of Geographers, the Canadian Ethnocultural Council, and served on the Canada Border Services Agency Advisory Board. Among her proudest accomplishments during her tenure as AAG president was the creation of the Harold M. Rose Award for Anti-Racist Scholarship and Practice in Geography. As she wrote in her presidential column at the time, Rose's stand in the 1970s made clear, quote, that racism is a spatial process enacted out of social choices over who belongs where. Now, there are many more who would do such work, but progress is slow and reticence strong. And so the award was intended to change that landscape. As longtime annals editor for the People, Place, Region section, editor of the 15-volume Encyclopedia of Human Geography, and co-editor of the International Encyclopedia of Geography, Kobayashi has been a major force in defining human geography's concerns and findings, effectively emphasizing the field and reshaping the field's to raise awareness and improve its efforts to address issues of social justice and to examine how the right to place and space is constructed, confronted, imposed, negotiated, and transformed. Her awards, editorial boards, and civic activities are numerous. Therefore, for these reasons and more, on behalf of its grateful members, worldwide scholars, and all who recognize the importance of excellence in geographical research and exploration, the American Geographical Society honors Professor Andrey Kobayashi by presenting her with the Charles P. Daly Medal on this, the 18th day of November in the year 2021 in New York City.
Thank you so very much, Deborah. It is more than an honor to receive this medal. I am in awe and humbled by the history of the medal, by the list of people who have come before me to receive the medal, and by the efforts of the American Geographical Society to reflect their place in the world, the place of geographers in the world. And I guess that is the single theme that runs through everything that you've just said, everything that geographers do. Before I accepted this medal, I took a few minutes to look up and see who Charles Daly was, since I thought that was quite important. And he was indeed someone whose career is to be emulated, someone who has given so much to both the American Society and to the discipline of geography. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the current council and President Marie Price and Eddie Pickle, who is one of the members of council with whom I shared an office back when we were graduate students together. And our recent conversation on this occasion echoed many that we had across the office at UCLA all those many years ago. So in 1968, I took my first university geography course and almost immediately decided that my chosen discipline of literature would have to remain a hobby in the background, because in geography, I found two things. I found a relevance, and remember this was 1968, a relevance to what's going on in the world, and wonderful people. And both of those aspects of geography have continued. No matter what branch of the discipline, geographies are almost never disconnected from the world in which they live, and almost never not dedicated to making that world a better place. Unselfish people who care about the world, who care about their students. And so there are many, many, many geographers whom I hold to be those contributors to society who make such a difference. And of course, never has it been more important for we as geographers to think about what is going on in the world. And I don't even have to make the list, but the concerns about Indigenous peoples, about climate change in every aspect, including climate refugees, transformation of landscapes in ways that are just hard to think about. The issue of racism that has always been central to the work that I do throughout my whole career. Black Lives Matter is important. The issues around Indigenous people, and in Canada, we have just found literally thousands of the graves of children in residential schools. I work in Vancouver, as Deborah said, in the downtown east side on a project called Right to Remain, where I'm working in a participatory way in partnership and collaboration with the people who inhabit the single room occupancy hotels that were originally built by Japanese Canadians who came here as immigrants to work in the lower levels of the labor force. And it's a very long story, so I won't even begin to tell it. And all of this in the midst of the pandemic, and I don't even need to say anything there about how the pandemic has changed our world, has altered landscapes, has altered our understanding of who we are and what we can do as geographers. So I just remain deeply, deeply committed to this discipline, to the people who have made this discipline. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Now introducing Laura Pulido. The Cullum Geographical Medal was the first medal to be awarded by the American Geographical Society. Its first recipient, Robert Peary, in 1896. And its imagery, as described by the medal's designer, Lydia Field Emmett, portrays the medal's intent. She said, on the front is the figure of a young man standing in the bow of a boat. He has thrown down his oars upon discovering land. He shades his eyes with his hand as the boat progresses through the waves. A seagull hovering indicates the proximity of land. Emmett depicts a world of exploration and discovery, but the assumptions of 1896 underlying such imagery have undergone serious rethinking. And among those we can thank for driving us to see so differently is this year's Cullum medalist, Laura Pulido. The award recognizes Dr. Pulido's contributions to enlarging our view, making us acknowledge not just the limits of what that young man in the bow saw upon confronting a new to him place, but also the limited vision in familiar places, visions that ignore the complexity and difference in experience and power. Pulido has metaphorically stood in that boat and called for recognition of the primacy of the many, the viewed as well as the viewers, and making inclusion and equity essential to geography's conception of place. Her work on environmental justice has profoundly affected the way we frame environmental and social justice issues. Pulido's curiosity about place and people goes back to growing up in Los Angeles. As a graduate student at UCLA, she pushed the field of geography forward to recognize how geographical circumstances actively produce racial inequality, even as they are treated as inevitable or natural. Her 2000 seminal article, Rethinking Environmental Racism, White Privilege in Urban Development in Southern California, reprinted countless times, powerfully linked environmental racism to white privilege. To Pulido, the serious work within the active field of environmental justice, aiming to explain locational choices, too often was too constrained, and so ignored the wider systemic context. Environmental racism needn't be the outcome of individual racist decisions. Instead, the seeming logic behind the results was driven too by ongoing decisions that had already produced and continued to reinforce inequality. She has raised significant methodological issues as part of her efforts to ensure research is inclusive, participatory, and useful. to those in the study. And she has actively supported others from a variety of backgrounds in gaining acceptance and getting their work done. Her ongoing work continues to probe the structural issues of inequality, searches for ways to overcome it, and remake our social, political, and environmental landscapes. Now at the University of Oregon, she spent much of her academic career at the University of Southern California. Her work has been recognized with grants, fellowships, and prizes. She has had from National Endowment for the Humanities, Guggenheim Fellowships, twice won the AAG's Globe Book Award for Public Understanding of Geography. And as well as, she has won the Harold M. Rose Anti-Racism Award. She actively writes, collaborates, and mentors, participating in endless panels as speaker, convener, serving on an intimidating number of PhD and master's committees. Therefore, for those reasons and more, on behalf of its grateful members, worldwide scholars, and all who recognize the importance of excellence in geographical research and exploration, the American Geographical Society honors Professor Laura Pulido by presenting her with a Cullum Geographical Medal on this, the 18th day of November, the year 2021 in New York City. Congratulations, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am deeply honored, not just to get the reward, but gosh, you spent so much time really thinking about my work and its contributions, and I appreciate that. In addition to being honored by this award, I also just want to mention it's really special to be getting other awards from this association along with Bill Denevan. He was once my professor at the University of Wisconsin many years ago, as well as Andrey Kobayashi, who has done so much to help diversify the field of geography, as well as to insist on the importance of studying race and racism. Now, although this award I know is being given to me as an individual, I choose to interpret and accept it for all those who have been working to try to understand and to push for the study of racism within geography. It's kind of an amazing place that we're at right now. We see this explosion of Black geographies, Latinx geographies, Indigenous geographies, and so many geographers are really thinking with an anti-racist and a decolonial kinds of lens. But it wasn't always like that. I'm old enough to know when it was a very different kind of situation. And there's many other people that work to help make this a part of mainstream, if you will, part of geography. And I'm thinking some of the work of my former friend and colleague, Clyde Woods, Bobby Wilson, Harold Rose, Joe Darden, Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Audrey, Melissa Gilbert. And I just want to share this little story that happened to me many years ago when I was a young assistant professor at USC. A colleague at another institution had asked me to review a paper that they had written about environmental racism, thinking that, of course, I knew something about the subject. So I did, and I gave them detailed comments. And in the comments, I said to them, I said, well, you know, I'm not quite sure here what your understanding of racism is, and it's not clear to me. I don't know what racism is. I remember I said that to him, and they wrote back to me and they said, what is wrong with you that you don't know what racism is? You must be some kind of affirmative action hire that doesn't belong at USC. And they were very derogatory towards me, but really what's important is they didn't think that racism was something that should or needed to be studied. They assumed it was an obvious thing, rather than a tremendous terrain of power dynamics that shapes landscapes and lives in so many different kinds of ways. And so the fact now that I'm getting this award today really tells me how much the discipline has changed and how much people are willing to see and willing to engage in questions about what is racism? How do we conceptualize it? How is it operationalized? How do people try to mobilize to create racial justice and those kinds of issues? So thank you very much for this award. I really appreciate it. And I just take this as a really positive sign to think about where the discipline is going. And I look forward to contributing for many years still. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to all of our medalists. You are an inspiring group, and we hope that the audience is as overwhelmed as I am to be in your presence. This concludes the award ceremony for 2021. Thank you all.